Now we look at some big movers. We mentioned Intel, which we'll get to in a moment, and Kevin mentioned UnitedHealth. There's big news there with Berkshire Hathaway.
Yes.
So Sam Vadas is here on the desk to tell us more about that.
Yes, that's right. Berkshire disclosing a sizable stake now in UNH, and so that is behind why we're seeing a nice pop in the pre-market for this stock. And as Kevin mentioned, they're very much behind perhaps or why we're seeing the Dow, as far as the futures are concerned, outperforming this morning. So what we're seeing is that UnitedHealth, as far as the shares added here, as far as Berkshire is concerned, is $1.57 billion, which some argue may not be a huge amount for Berkshire, but Buffett did own about 1.18 million shares in UnitedHealth between 2006 and 2009, before selling that entire stake not long after that, 2010, off the back of what had been seen as a relatively broad retreat there when it comes to some of these health insurers. It's interesting, not the only one we're seeing as far as scooping up this stake as far as Berkshire is concerned. Michael Burry has also given this one a look into, but this has been a very beaten down stock, perhaps trading at a discount as far as some of the views are concerned, has faced a lot of challenges and headwinds, of course, with regards to the situation around the CEO. Of course, the latest troubles have been to do with that DOJ investigation, so it has been facing this federal scrutiny as well. We do know from the earnings that it did reinstate the guidance, which was encouraging. However, it still wasn't enough as far as investors were concerned, as far as impressing the street. Analysts have been very focused on what they have to say about growth in 2026. But it's been interesting in terms of what we've seen over at Berkshire as far as, disclosing other stakes in other companies. It's not just UNH, it's Nucor as well, Lennar, DR Horton. So obviously, this has been a really interesting day as far as seeing all those companies popping in the pre-market as well. But with regards to UNH, I've heard a lot of commentary out this morning sort of suggesting that, at the end of the day, while this has been a very unloved stock, that this is a systemically important company. It's something that you need when it comes to healthcare. Obviously, Mizuho analysts have written a lot about this with respect to the investment thesis here, that it is attractive long-term as far as an investment opportunity, given the industry backdrop, double-digit EPS growth rate, strong cash flow generation, and sound capital deployment strategy. We know, obviously, this company, Nicole, has been dealing with those rising medical costs, but as we've heard from a lot of the health insurers, especially in this space, that this is something that they are seeing very much across the board here. But yeah, it's been a very big few months, no doubt, for UnitedHealth. And, it's just interesting with this disclosure of this sizable stake as far as how Buffett see things.
Yeah, I saw it. And I saw you had Appaloosa with 2.28 million, and also Cyan, as you noted, with 350,000. I mean, it's been certainly beaten down and has had, first of all, the tragic death of the CEO, and then now everything became uncovered in all those headlines. So it really got knocked down. So it's interesting that they see this opportunity. I mean, you know that the Berkshire Hathaway is always looking for value, because sometimes things get knocked down, they never come back. Right? That's not what Buffett say. I mean, he sees the opportunity there. Should we get to Intel? Let's talk about Intel.
Let's talk about that.
Government now looking to take a stake in Intel. It's highly unusual. We've seen the government do this with Fannie and Freddie and things like that, but highly unusual moves.
Yeah, fairly unprecedented as far as a lot of the conversations are concerned around this morning, particularly in more sort of recent history. We are seeing reports now that Intel and the Trump administration are in talks about the US government actually taking a financial stake and now in the company. No doubt this would fit very comfortably within the whole America First push right now, but there has been some suggestion in these media reports this could potentially take some of the pressure off the CEO, which of course he has been under scrutiny because of his alleged business ties to China, no doubt from Trump. He did actually have a meeting, that is Lip-Bhutan, with Trump earlier this week at the White House, where apparently this idea was floated and discussed. So far, reportedly, the details of how such an arrangement would actually be structured are still sort of being hammered out at the moment, but there has been a lot of suggestion that a deal would help shore up, Intel's planned chip factory and hub over in Ohio, which we know has hit repeated snags there, and it has been sort of pushed back and delayed. So we are seeing shares of Intel climbing as much as, how much are we up now? 4% or so off the back of this announcement and certainly these reports. But, we know that they've been facing a number of challenges. We got the earnings report just not long ago where the CEO had been saying it's not been easy, also been saying that, suggesting they'd got a bit ahead of their skis with regards to, what they'd been investing in without sort of adequate demand there. But, there's been a lot of conversations, and I was speaking to Diane about this morning, Nicole, about, how a lot of the discussions this morning, particularly on media outlets, has been around the fact that you've got this government getting involved in the private sector kind of narrative now, and it's not just this story. It's the other headline we were sort of talking about earlier this week with regards to, the Trump administration perhaps going to be taking, 15% of sales with regards to Nvidia over in China as well. There have been these comparisons made to, what the government's doing to places like China and places like Singapore, and there's been a chatter about too big to fail. That's been something we've been hearing about a lot. But there is this view out there in this sort of line of thought that this is not a completely bad idea, while, as you say, it is fairly rare, it's unprecedented, and that is because there has been some concerns around the leadership. Obviously, the CEO has been brought into question. That's been very much the scrutiny, but the company itself has been brought into question as to sort of being behind the eight ball a bit. And so, when it comes to supply chains and chips, there is a national security argument there, and that is very much the view out there as to, why perhaps something like this is not a bad idea while it is uncommon.
The CEO went to Washington last week, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he went and he spoke to President Trump. So President Trump wouldn't just throw this out willy-nilly. They must have talked about this. And Intel must be in a really tough time to even remotely agree to something like this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to be a hostile takeover, right? So there must be, Intel has certainly paled in its efforts to turn it around as technology is advanced and the AI arms race and the innovation. And Intel, I've had guests who kept picking Intel. They loved it, but they just kept getting the 1-2 punch. So, you have to surmise that Intel needs help. And the CEO, maybe the CEO is not the right CEO, but they must be asking for help. It can't just be like that.
Well, that's right. I mean, no doubt once this is confirmed and it all sort of comes out in the wash, we'll see if a lot of the details are true. So far, it's just media reporting at the moment. The company, as far as the reports are concerned, hasn't confirmed it, and neither has the White House at this point. I mean, but, to your point, Nicole, yes, I mean, we have seen this so-called sort of pilgrimage to the White House, but I mean, he's not the only CEO that's been down there either. I mean, we've seen Tim Cook there in recent weeks, Jensen Huang. So it very much seems like, Trump is trying to get, some more clarity on, where we're at, so particularly with some of these big companies, and particularly because he's made sort of national security and the whole idea of, America first and reindustrialization and, sort of cutting these deals with various CEOs like your Tim Cooks of the world, where, okay, you invest here and we'll cut you some slack when it comes to tariffs and we'll let you off the hook there. I mean, there's been, a lot of conversations with these C-suites from some of these big companies.
And look, tech has just been incredible. I was just looking at the triple Qs. That's up right now. It just has had such a nice run of 13.5% this year. Thank you. Almost 30% 1 year. Sam Vadas, thank you. A good look at two key names here.